When I was very, very young, I used to watch my dad tie flies. And I can remember, like, sitting there and watching him. And, when I had kids of my own, they used to sit and watch me tie flies. It was wonderful, actually. It was very warm. But I remember him tying flies, and he would tell me stories. This fly rig is a squirrel tail, and it was a streamer fly. And it had a squirrel tail wing, and had a silver body. And there was two other. One was called an Edson Tiger Light and Edson Tiger Dark. Well, he taught me how to tie flies by teaching me how to tie the Edson Tiger Dark and the Edson Tiger Light. And the third fly I tied with a squirrel tail. And then I used those flies, and I caught trout on those flies later on. My world was, he would come home at the time when I was 5 and 6 years old. He would go fishing when he got out of work. And then he would come home, and he would bring his trout with him. And we had a nice little sink, and he would clean the trout, and he would empty the things inside, the things that they were eating. He would put it in a glass, and he would stir it around. And he would show me all the little insects and all the things that the fish were eating. And it was fascinating to me. I don't do that anymore, but I did that for years and years and years, and that's how I learned all the different types of flies that trout really ate and why they ate them. And when they were hatches, they would be completely chocolatey block full of one type of a fly. And at other times they would have all kinds of different things in their stomach. And he also, he did some other things too. Like he showed me all the peacock feathers and all the marable stork feathers and the turkey feathers and the hackles, and taught me how to tie dry flies and taught me how to do deer hair. And so by the time I was about 11 years old, I had a little business supplying fishing stores with his flies. I didn't do it for long, but I did do it. And it was fun to do that, to bring the flies, and the guy give you some money, not much money, those days it was nothing. It was better than having a paper room. And he had some books that he loved, that he had bought. And one of the books that he bought, or that he had, that I grew up with, was a book called Trout by Ray Bergman. And it was published, I think, in 1936. And I think he bought that book at 22 years old. And I just thought that was amazing. And I read that book over and over and over again. I still read that book. Even to this day, I read that book. And there's nothing in that book that isn't true. There's nothing in that book that isn't profound. And I learned so much about fishing from that book. About the way that things came in cycles, like in the early spring you see the daffodils come up. And crocuses come up before those, and then the skunk cabbage comes up before that. Well, the way that the rivers work is that at certain times of the year, like in the spring, there'll be different types of insects that start to hatch. And you can match those hatches to the flowers that are blooming. My dad would always say, oh, the lilacs are blooming. Let's go striper fishing. And that would be the end of trout fishing for that spring. As soon as the lilacs bloom, we would stop trout fishing, and then we'd go out on the ocean and fish with stripers. And so when the lilacs were blooming, the stripers were here. But the trout was still there. We just didn't fish for them. But that's what I'm trying to say. There's a connection between the plant life and the order of how the insects will be hatching in the rivers. And you get into that order, and you always know what's going to happen next. Meaning, like, there's going to be a Hendrickson hatch, and then there'll be, I know the old-fashioned names for the mayflies. Lake Cahill is some other kind of name now. It's a Latin name. And all the bugs would come out at different times of the year. But they came out in order, and they never were out of order. There was never a year where there would be insect that was hatching before its natural. If it was supposed to be the fifth one that would be hatching, it would never be the fourth one or the third one. It was always in order. Everything happened in order. Same way that the plants. You didn't have daffodils coming out in August, but they did come out in May, late March, April, and May. And the same thing was true with trout. Then as I became more and more attuned to the ocean and the way that the ocean worked, I found that the same thing is true in the ocean. That the different migrations of the different bait fish and the different hatches, meaning the shrimp they would mate at certain times of the year, and the clamworms, they would mate at certain times of the year. And a lot of it was coordinated with the way that the moon would come, like a full moon and a new moon. On a new moon, you would have invertebrates that would be, invertebrates meaning like crabs and worms and things like that. And on full moon, the fish with spines, like silver sides and regular fish, they would spawn on the full moon. So you knew like there was going to be a lot of silver sides on the full moon in June. A whole lot of shrimp and worms on the new moon in June. The new moon before the full moon in May. The darker the moon in May. So anyway, what I'm saying is there's a full moon in May, a full moon in June. And then in between it, there's a new moon. That new moon in between would be invertebrates. And most full moons would have vertebrates. So you get into that, and then pretty soon you can figure out stuff, and there's no randomness in the way that, if you're a part-time fisherman and you go like twice a year on a Sunday, you're never going to see that rhythm. But if you fish all the time, you start to see that everything has an order to it, that nature is very orderly. And as you get into that order, it just starts to open up. And that's where the Eden really lies, and seeing